The atmosphere was suffocating in the room. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone. The cast was divided, and the line between Team Spice and Team Bambi had never been clearer. Whispers flew through the air like wildfire. But one thing was undeniable. The truth was on the verge of being revealed. Scrappy sat quietly, his mind racing, hands trembling slightly as he waited for the DNA results. The sealed envelope sat in front of him, its contents holding the power to shatter his entire world. Mama D stood behind him, stern and unwavering. Her eyes were fixed on Bambi with a cold resolve, as though she already knew the truth and was merely waiting for it to be confirmed. Bambi, on the other hand, tried to hold it together. Her anxiety radiated off her. She couldn't look Scrappy in the eye, and her attempts to mask the fear were painfully obvious. "How long is this going to take?" Bambi muttered, her voice strained. No one answered. Spice, who had been silent until now, could feel the tension in the room. Her eyes narrowed as she observed the unfolding drama. Scrappy grabbed the envelope, his fingers brushing the paper. Time seemed to freeze as he tore it open. His heart pounded in his chest as he glanced at the paper inside. His eyes widened. His world stopped spinning. The words on the page were like a dagger to the heart. The child was not his. Scrappy stumbled back in his chair, the shock hitting him like a freight train. His breath came in short, jagged bursts as his world shattered in that single moment. His head spun. His thoughts raced. But all he could focus on was the undeniable truth in his hands. He had been betrayed. The lies. The trust. The love he thought he shared with Bambi. All of it had been a facade. He could hear Spice's voice behind him, taunting, calling out Bambi's lies. But all Scrappy could hear was the deafening silence of his own heartbreak. The world had become blurry as tears welled up in his eyes. He had trusted her. He had loved her. And now everything was crashing down. The room seemed to close in on him. His hands gripped the edge of the table as if to steady himself, but nothing could stabilize the torrent of emotions inside him. He had given everything to her, and now she had destroyed him. "Scrappy," Bambi's voice broke through the silence. But Scrappy couldn't even look at her. Her voice was full of guilt, but he could hear the fear in it too. She had no defense. The truth had been laid bare, and there was nothing she could say to fix it. He couldn't take it anymore. Without a word, he stood up, pushing his chair back with force. He turned his back on Bambi, not caring who saw the tears running down his face. He couldn't stand to look at her. He couldn't even stand to be in the same room as her anymore. The woman he thought he knew, the woman he had loved, had deceived him in the worst possible way. "I need to be alone," Scrappy muttered, his voice barely audible as he walked away. His footsteps were heavy and slow, but his heart was already miles away from the woman who had once been his everything. Bambi stood frozen in the middle of the room, the weight of the situation sinking in. She had been exposed, and there was nowhere to hide. She had tried to keep the truth buried, but the DNA results had torn it all apart. She reached out a hand as if to stop him, but it was too late. The damage was done. Spice watched as Scrappy left, but her expression was unreadable. She had played her part in this, but she wasn't done yet. She knew what this moment meant. The DNA test results were just the beginning. The world was watching, and she was ready to make sure everyone knew the truth. Bambi tried to gather herself, wiping away the few tears that had escaped her eyes. "This isn't what it looks like," she muttered, her voice cracking under the weight of her own guilt. But even she knew it was too late for excuses. The world had seen the truth, and now there was no going back. Spice stepped forward, her voice calm but full of authority. "Bambi, you've been lying to everyone, but the truth does lie. You can't hide from this. You can't hide from the fact that you've hurt Scrappy. You've broken his heart, and no amount of excuses will fix that." The tension in the room was palpable. Mama D, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally spoke up. "I told you, Bambi. You've hurt my son more than anyone else could. I knew you weren't the right woman for him. I've seen it all, and now the whole world will too." Bambi's breath caught in her throat. She had tried to defend herself, tried to salvage what little reputation she had left, but nothing could stop the truth from coming out. Spice's words had hit her like a slap in the face. She was no longer the golden girl of the show. She was just another liar exposed for all to see. The cast was divided. Some of them, the ones who had once supported Bambi, now stood in silence, unable to defend her. Others, like Spice, stood firm in their conviction that Bambi had deceived them all. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every painful moment, every exchange of words. The drama had only just begun, and it was clear this episode would be one for the history books. Scrappy stood in the hallway, feeling like the weight of the world had just crashed down on him. His chest tightened with each breath, and his hands shook uncontrollably. Every tear that streamed down his face felt like a confirmation of his worst fears. The woman he had built his life with, the one he thought would stand by him through thick and thin, had betrayed him in the worst way. He felt completely disoriented, as if his entire world had flipped upside down. His thoughts raced. A storm of disbelief and anger swirled inside him. How could Bambi do this? How could she lie, manipulate, and destroy the trust they had built over the years? He had given her everything, his heart, his loyalty, his love, and she had taken it all and crushed it under the weight of her lies. Mama D, seeing her son in pain, walked up to him. Her face was stern, but filled with compassion. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that spoke volumes. She had always been the one to guide him, to protect him from the harsh realities of life. But this was different. This wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about betrayal at the deepest level. "Baby, I know it hurts," Mama D said softly, her voice filled with sorrow. "But you've got to understand something. This ain't on you. You didn't do anything wrong." Scrappy looked up at his mother, his eyes filled with confusion and pain. "How could she do this to me, Mama? I loved her. I trusted her. I thought we were building something real." Mama D sighed, looking at her son with a mixture of empathy and frustration. "I know you did, and I know it's hard to see right now. But this wasn't about you. This was about her. Her need for control. Her need to manipulate the situation to her advantage. You were just a pawn in her game." Scrappy let out a frustrated sigh, shaking his head. "I thought I knew her. I thought she was different. But now I don't even recognize her. How could she hurt me like this?" Mama D squeezed his shoulder, her grip firm and reassuring. Because, baby, she wasn't ready to face the consequences of her actions. She thought she could keep lying, keep manipulating, and keep hiding the truth. But the truth always comes out. It always does. Scrappy nodded slowly, his heart heavy. He wanted to believe his mother, to find solace in her words, but the pain was too raw, too fresh. He had trusted Bambi with his heart, and now that trust had been shattered. The woman he had called his wife, the mother of his children, had lied to him, had betrayed him in a way that cut deeper than anything else. He read the results over and over again. The child wasn't his. The truth was undeniable. He collapsed into a nearby chair, his head in his hands as the tears began to fall. The pain was unbearable. He had given everything to Bambi, and now she had shattered it all. Mama D walked up to him, her voice soft but firm. "Baby, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. She lied to you, and now she has to face the consequences." Scrappy looked up at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "How could she do this to me, Mama? How could she do this to our family?" Mama D shook her head, her expression hardening. She thought she could get away with it, but she can't hide from the truth anymore. And neither can you. You've got to face this, baby, for you, for your kids, for your future. Meanwhile, Spice, still live on her phone, was enjoying every moment. She had exposed Bambi for the liar she was, and now she was taking victory laps. Her followers flooded the comments with support, fire emojis lighting up the screen. Spice's smirk grew wider as she continued her rant, her voice rising with every word. "This is what happens when you think you can fool people forever," she said, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "You lie, you cheat, and you think you can keep getting away with it, but not today. Not with me." Bambi thought she could tear a family apart, but she was about to learn that karma always catches up. Scrappy, still reeling from the results, turned away. He couldn't stand to hear Spice's voice anymore, couldn't bear the reminder of what had just happened. He walked outside, needing air, needing space to breathe. His world had just been torn apart, and all he could think about was the family he had lost. As the cast gathered in the aftermath of the explosive DNA reveal, there was a sense of chaos that no one could deny. The divide was clear. Spice had emerged victorious, her supporters loud and proud. Bambi, on the other hand, stood alone, shaken. Her reputation was crumbling faster than she could grasp. Scrappy had walked out, his pain and frustration too much to contain. The man who had once been so sure of his love now found himself questioning everything. What happened to the years they spent together? What happened to the promises, the lies, the manipulation? His heart felt hollow. The love he thought he had was a facade built on betrayal. Spice, seeing Scrappy's exit as her moment, grabbed her phone and went live again. She addressed her growing audience, comments flooding in. "You know what they say, what's done in the dark always comes to light," she said, her voice smooth like velvet but laced with razor-sharp honesty. Bambi thought she could get away with it. But here we are, truth exposed for the world to see. Her eyes glimmered as the comments section exploded with support. She glanced back at Bambi, who stood still, clinging to any hope she had left. Spice's smirk deepened. "It's funny, isn't it? The perfect wife, the perfect story, all shattered by one DNA test." The comment section was a battlefield of emojis and praise. But this wasn't just about truth, it was about power. And right now, Spice had it. "Bambi," she continued, "you've been lying to everyone. To Scrappy. To us. To yourself. And now look where you are. This wasn't a marriage. It was manipulation, and we all saw it coming." Bambi shifted uncomfortably, guilt and anxiety etched across her face. She finally looked up and met Spice's gaze, anger flashing in her eyes. "You think you've won?" she hissed, voice shaking. "You don't know what you've started. You don't know the power I have. You'll regret this." But Spice wasn't fazed. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Regret? The only one who'll regret anything is you. You think you fooled the world, but the truth always comes to light. And we're all watching it burn. You're not the victim, Bambi. You're the villain, and the world sees it now." Bambi said nothing. But the rage and humiliation were plain as she stormed out of the room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. She was gone, leaving behind the wreckage of her own making. The room fell silent, thick with tension. Spice watched her go, the smile never leaving her face. She knew she had won this battle. But more than that, she knew the lies had finally been exposed. The rest of the cast exchanged quiet glances. The truth had changed everything. The lines were drawn. There was no going back. Mama D, who had been silent until now, slowly rose from her chair. Her eyes didn't leave the floor. She hadn't expected it to go this far, but now she knew her instincts had been right all along. Her son had been manipulated. He had been living a lie, and she was done staying silent. She stepped forward toward the cameras, her voice steady and firm. "I've been quiet for too long," she said, cutting through the silence. "This woman has hurt my son in ways I can't even begin to describe. And I'm not going to let her get away with it." She turned to the crew, her gaze unwavering. "I'm demanding a DNA test. I want the truth once and for all. I won't let Bambi hide behind lies, not after everything she's done." The crew stood frozen, stunned. The tension was palpable, but Mama D didn't flinch. She wasn't backing down. Spice, watching from the sidelines, nodded in approval. Mama D was right. It was time for the truth. And Bambi couldn't run from it anymore. Bambi, still trying to recover from the public exposure, had no idea what was coming next. Her plan was unraveling, and there was no stopping it. She tried to bury her secrets, but now they were rising fast. Meanwhile, Scrappy sat alone in the dark, struggling to process everything. The DNA results, the betrayal, the lies. His mind raced. His heart broke with every breath. "How could she do this to me?" he whispered. "How could I have been so blind?" Tears welled in his eyes as the truth crushed him. He had believed in their love, but now, everything had fallen apart. He walked to the window, staring blankly at the city lights. He felt lost, alone. His life had been shattered, and there was no putting it back together the same way. One thing was certain. There was no going back. The truth had been exposed. His marriage, his family, everything had been built on a lie. As the camera zoomed in on Scrappy's broken expression, Spice went live one final time. But this time, there was no smirk, no victory in her voice. Just raw, focused energy. "The truth's out," she said to her followers. "There's no turning back now. We've all seen the lies, the deceit. Now it's time to face the reality of who's really been playing the game." Bambi was no longer the center of the story. Scrappy was. The cast saw it. The viewers felt it. The damage was done. And as the episode faded to black, one question echoed in everyone's mind. What happens next? Could Scrappy ever forgive her? Could Bambi redeem herself? Only time would tell.